When the radar starts screaming like I'm launching a nuclear warhead, it usually means one thing. Someone's sniffing what isn't theirs. The lab is a monochrome hum, white walls, black benches, a grid of soft LEDs that make everyone look a little dehydrated and guilty. Air conditioners purr above like distant ocean, and the main wall throws a pale blue hologram of my code into the room, all neat lines and trembling numbers. The coffee in my cup is old enough to vote. I drink it anyway. I've been elbow deep in the suppression bracelet for 3 hours. It's a ring of graphite and silver along my wrist, no thicker than a watch band, threaded with microcapacitors like tiny vertebrae. On a good day, it reads me as neutral. On a great day, it reads me as furniture. Today is not a great day, because the building's external radar spikes hard enough to make the ceiling speakers chirp. Alpha wave detected, the intercom says, trying to be calm. It fails. Level 5. Sector 5. Sector 5 is me. Relax, I tell the bracelet. You're doing amazing, sweetie. The bracelet doesn't reply. It never does. It gives a micro vibration that feels like a swallowed cough. The hologram flickers, my code steadies. The wall display rolls out a city map, paints a pulsing red halo around our tower, then narrows to our floor. My heart responds with professional indifference, which is to say it attempts to leave my body through my throat. Footsteps in the hall, efficient, weighted, unhurried. The kind of steps that mean someone knows exactly where you are and exactly what they'll do when they get there. The door slides open on a hydraulic exhale. He fills the frame, tall, precise, in a charcoal uniform that could cut glass. The name patch says, Ricardo. The face says, don't lie to me, and maybe I'll let you keep your favorite hand. His eyes move like a scanner, bench, screen, cup, me. The small detector in his palm peels an ugly, insistent note. He looks at the device, then at me. Hi, I say. You missed the memo about knocking? I knocked on the floor, he says, voice low even. You heard the alarms. Alarms are dramatic by nature. I gesture at my bracelet. Me, not so much. He steps in. The door whispers shut behind him. The room compresses by an invisible inch. Ricardo Delgado, he says. Head of security. I know, I say. The uniform gave it away. I'm Nolan, engineer, part-time janitor of bad ideas. His mouth almost moves, not a smile. More like his face briefly remembers that smiling is a human function. The detector wails again as he closes the gap between us to 2 feet. He glances at its screen, then at my wrist. Your bracelet reads neutral, he says. Immaculately, I agree. My device disagrees. Maybe it's jealous. The detector's display reflects in his eyes, a thin ribbon of red peaking and troughing like a bad lie on a polygraph. I raise my hands figuratively by spreading them over the workbench. Soldering pen, low-temp welder, skin patches, 3 tiny screws I keep pretending I won't lose. You can run a sweep, I say. You'll find dust in my last shred of patience. I'll run a sweep, he agrees, but he doesn't move. His gaze anchors on the bracelet like he's waiting for it to confess. He places the handheld detector on the bench. It continues to scream, offended at being put down. His other hand extends, palm open. Synchronize, he says. Bracelet to my reader. Standard procedure. That's not standard if you're worried I'm a level 5 alpha, I say. That's how you get your fingers bitten. I'm not worried. He gestures. I'm confirming. Can we pretend you confirmed and skip to the part where you apologize for interrupting a genius at work? Hand. He's trained to be a wall. I'm trained to blow holes in walls. I hold his gaze, then offer my wrist. He takes it, and the first hit is scent. Clean soap, metal, something like cedar trying not to be noticed. The second hit is heat. My bracelet hums against his skin, a shallow tremor. His reader chirps out a sync tone, and the hologram throws a new window. Handshake successful. For 3 seconds, nothing happens. On the 4th second, my bracelet gives a strobe pulse, 1 red blink, sharp as a pinprick. It's so fast most people would miss it. Ricardo isn't most people. His gaze flicks down, catches the red, and comes back up to my face with a coolness that says he saw it and also stored it in a vault with a date and timestamp. Neutral, the bracelet declares in a flat, pleasant voice. Status, neutral. The detector's line spikes to the ceiling. Funny, I say. One says neutral, one says nuclear. Are you going to make them talk it out, or should I get popcorn? He releases my wrist like it might detonate out of spite and steps to the wall. Console, calling up the building's data stream with a practiced gesture. Red waves. Floor overlays. Names blacked out. He's neat about it, which I hate a little. Mess is honest. Neatness hides knives. You were alone when the spike hit? He asks. Unless I'm hallucinating coworkers, I say, which is possible. Did you know coffee is a legally recognized hallucination vector? He doesn't bite. Blood sample, he says. I tilt my head. And here I thought we were still on a first-name basis. Blood sample, he repeats, patient like a guillotine. Minimal. Finger stick. It ruins the manicure I don't have. He turns, and the reader on the bench gives another offended scream. He mutes it with a tap. The silence after is actually louder. Nolan, he says, voice softening by a micron. The city is not kind to anomalies. If you're clean, we're finished. If you're not, stalling won't save you. And you, I ask, are you kind? He doesn't look away. I am precise, which is either a promise or a threat, depending on how you like your knives categorized. I pick up the lancet. It's ridiculous how small it is. I press the tip to my fingertip and pause. Informed consent? I ask, because I can't help myself. Consent, he says, and nods. I press. A bead of red swells. The bracelet vibrates like a trapped bee. The lab's light seems to contract, a lens focusing to a point. I place the drop on the strip. The console begins its polite digestion of my secrets. Ricardo watches the progress bar like it owes him rent. I watch him, because self-sabotage is my second language. The rigid shoulders soften a degree. The uniform's lines reveal a human underneath. Stubborn jaw, a scar at the hairline, eyes that track too much too fast. When he catches me looking, I toss him a smirk like a towel. Don't worry, I say. If I were an unregistered alpha, I'd have already bitten you. That's not comforting, he says. You'd prefer I flirt clumsily? You're already doing that. The console pings. He steps closer. I step half a step back on principle. He scans the result, his face unreadable as a locked file. Neutral, he reads. I throw my hands up. See? Furniture. He doesn't smile. He doesn't frown. The tiniest exhale. And yet the building radar flagged a level 5 alpha originating from this sector. Then the building radar owes me an apology and maybe lunch. I tap my bracelet. My side is clean. Your side, he echoes, as if sides are an interesting new concept. He collects his detector, which resumes its distressed opera. He kills its sound again, but the red bar still rages like a siren in silence. He moves toward the door, then stops with his hand on the panel. If you experience any more drama, he says, you'll report directly to me. Sure, I say. I'll send a calendar invite. Recurring melodrama with head of security. Nolan. Ricardo. He studies me long enough for warmth to move, inconveniently, along my spine. He's measuring, weighing, filing. Like he's building a map in his head and pinning me at the center with red string. One more thing, he says. Detectors are crude. They misread intent for threat, but they don't invent signals out of nothing. So your toy isn't lying. It's just sensitive. I grin. Relatable. His gaze drops, quick, to my bracelet. The wrist bones, the pulse, the kind of look that isn't quite professional. When his eyes come back up, they're cooler again. Stay neutral, he says. He leaves. The door exhales. The lab expands that stolen inch. Alone, I watch the hologram settle and the city map blur. The AC hums. My finger throbs once in time with my pulse. I lift my wrist to the light. The bracelet's surface looks perfectly calm, like a pond pretending not to hide a storm. Neutral, it whispers. For a heartbeat. 2. The ring warms. A tiny red spark blinks beneath the graphite skin, as brief as a swallowed gasp. Then it's gone. The prototype lab smells like ozone, coffee, and expensive failure. Glass walls divide workstations into transparent cages, every surface humming with cables, soft, screens, and an undertone of static, like the room itself is trying to remember how to breathe. Ricardo stands beside my bench, reading the new assignment from the central board, joint project. His name and mine. One neat line, a punishment disguised as teamwork. New initiative, adaptive suppression field, ASF. Objective, stabilize wave interference across city zones. Assigned, Eng. Nolan Gray plus Sec. Head Ricardo Delgado. Great. I wanted a promotion, and got an alpha with authority issues instead. You requested this pairing, didn't you? I ask without looking up. Request is a strong word, he says. His tone is all professionalism, but I hear the faint static of amusement beneath it. Let's call it necessity. Sure. Like gasoline needs a match. Exactly, he says. And that damn half-smile ghosts his face. I hate that he can say a single word and sound like he's already won the argument. I turn back to the console, tapping through schematics. Fine. Just don't shed fur on my equipment. I don't shed. Everyone sheds. He hums like he's considering the data, or maybe me. Either way, it's annoying. We work in synchronized irritation for the next hour. His posture is too straight, mine too defensive. Every time he leans in to review a data stream, my pulse flinches. The bracelets sync to our body temperature. The lab sensors buzz faintly when proximity thresholds overlap. It's absurd. Like the air itself can't decide which one of us it prefers. Ricardo reaches over my shoulder, inputting a code sequence directly into my terminal. I feel the heat of his arm near my ear. Your equations loop at 92%, he murmurs. You're missing a damping ratio. I glance sideways at him. Oh, sorry, I forgot to include the condescension coefficient. What's the value these days? Infinity? His breath catches. A low, reluctant laugh escapes him before he smothers it. It's infuriatingly human. By mid-afternoon, the system's first prototype is live, a floating ring of sensors inside a glass containment dome. Its light ripples in steady pulses of blue. According to theory, it should dampen any uncontrolled wave output nearby. Stand closer, he says, adjusting the dials on his reader. I am close. Closer. I raise a brow. If I move one more step, HR will start a rumor. Then move carefully. I step forward. The dome hums deeper. Blue light tightening around the perimeter. Ricardo's handheld radar flickers between green and amber. Interesting, he mutters. It reacts more strongly to you. Because I'm interesting, I say. Or because it hates me. Hard to tell. He doesn't answer immediately. His eyes trace the bracelet on my wrist, the faint metallic seam glinting under the lab lights. Then, unexpectedly, his hand brushes mine as he adjusts a cable. Just a touch. The hum jumps to red. We both freeze. The glass dome vibrates with a high note, the reader in his hand shrieking in protest. For a second, the air feels electric, dense, prickling, alive. He pulls his hand back fast, like he's been burned. You felt that? I grin to cover the jolt in my stomach. If by that you mean your complete lack of spatial awareness, yes. He exhales slowly through his nose. You destabilized the field. I destabilized you, I mutter. What? Nothing. The incident goes into his report as brief interference, non-critical. I file it under deeply awkward. Neither of us mentions the pulse that passed between us. Too sharp to be accidental. Too real to be ignored. When the day finally dies, Ricardo signs off and leaves with a curt nod. The door slides shut behind him, leaving the lab in soft twilight and the smell of metal. I should go. Instead, I stay. The dome still glows faintly blue, the data logs ticking quietly on the screen. My bracelet, though, my traitorous bracelet, won't stop trembling. A faint pulse runs through it, like a heartbeat out of sync with mine. Don't start, I whisper. He's gone. You can stop pretending. It doesn't stop. A static crackle crawls over my skin. I glance at the sensors. They're reading a microwave surge. My own code window flashes red. No external source. Internal origin. Subject G052. Gray N. Perfect, I say. Now I'm a hazard to myself. The dome's blue light flares white, then fractures into bands. The air thickens, ozone biting at my throat. I stagger back as the bracelet's hum spikes, a deep, resonant note that vibrates my bones. And then I feel it, the shift. My pulse climbs, sharp and heavy. But it's not panic, it's power. The kind that wants out, that doesn't care about containment protocols or polite society. My chest tightens with it. The lights around me tilt warmer, like the world just decided to recognize me as something new. The dome glass cracks. A spiderweb pattern blooms across the surface with a sound like ice splitting. I freeze, staring. One more vibration and it'll shatter. The bracelet flares crimson. My breath comes faster. The lab lights flicker, shorting once, twice, before plunging half the room into shadow. Reflexively, I grip the edge of the bench, knuckles white. Then, like a sigh, the energy drains. The bracelet cools beneath my fingers, fading to its usual innocent gray. The cracked glass settles. Everything smells like burnt air. I swallow, my throat dry as static. Beautiful, I mutter. Now I'm not just unstable, I'm flammable. The city lights beyond the glass walls blink lazily in the distance. 1,000 artificial stars. I stand in the half-dark, feeling my pulse even out, slow and heavy but still charged, like the echo of thunder after the storm's already gone. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I picture Ricardo's expression if he saw this mess, precision incarnate, watching the chaos I've become. He'd probably sigh, then report it, then help me hide it anyway. I sit down on the bench, exhale, and whisper to the bracelet. Don't tell him. The bracelet doesn't answer, but its faint vibration feels suspiciously like laughter. Pulse Zero is designed to feel like a secret you can drink. Matte glass walls mute the street into a watercolor. The ceiling drifts low and soft, lined with anti-pheromone filters that hum like distant bees. No city sensors inside. No bracelets broadcasting. If neutrality had a smell, it would be this: cold brew and citrus cleaner. Ricardo is already at a corner table when I arrive. Uniform jacket traded for. A dark shirt that fits him like a thesis. Tight, structured, convincing. His posture is still military, but his eyes, less steel, more weather. I tell myself to notice only architectural features of the furniture. I fail. He inclines his head. Nolan, Ricardo, I echo, dropping into the chair across from him. Is this the part where you read me my rights over a macchiato? The opposite, he says. No forms, no recorder, coffee. He slides a cup toward me. The order I always fake decide only after 3 minutes of performance. Black, hot, a little tragic. I narrow my eyes at him and sip anyway. It's perfect. I hate that. So, I say. Pulse Zero. The Switzerland of cafes. The filters reduce ambient interference, he says. We can talk without the building's nerves adding commentary. You say that like you aren't the building's nerves. Today I am a man having coffee. That feels like a demotion. He almost smiles. Temporary reassignment. We begin in the safe zone, which for us means work. He asks about the adaptive feedback loop I wrote at 2 a.m, and I shrug like I didn't. I ask about the extra sweep he ran yesterday that he didn't log, and he doesn't deny it. So you do your own side quests now, I say. Security and R&D. I like to understand the tools I use, he says, tone mild. And the engineers who build them. Objectifying me as a tool, I say. Bold. You objectify yourself first. I arch a brow. I prefer self-sufficient. Is that what you call it when you don't ask for help? His voice softens half a register. Or when you're afraid of what help costs? Something inside my chest presses against a door. I drink instead of answering. He tracks the move. His gaze flickers to my throat, then away, as if he didn't mean to notice but did anyway. We drift from schematics to philosophy, because that's the only way to safely talk about us without talking about us. I say suppression bracelets are a social leash disguised as safety. He counters that leashes stop people from getting hurt. I point out that leashes also hurt when you pull too hard. He says quiet things about laws, about trains that run on time because everyone agrees to be a cog. I say I was born allergic to cogs. I know, he says. I read your file. You authorized yourself to read my file? I am myself, he says, deadpan. A laugh escapes me, low and involuntary. For a second, the table stops being a battlefield and becomes a bridge. Then he glances at my wrist, bare and polite under the cafe's clean air. And I remember the cracked glass, the crimson flare, the way the lab smelled like a thunderclap. So, I say lightly, because if I don't lace this with sarcasm, it'll taste like fear. Why me? Why coffee? Why now? He thinks for a beat, fingers drumming once on his own cup. Because my reader reacts to you even when everything else is quiet. My heartbeat hops a step. Define. Reacts. In the building, he says, my device spikes. In the corridor, it spikes. In the elevator, it spikes if we don't speak. In the lab, his mouth tightens a fraction. You know the lab. I know the lab, I say. I hear the glass crack again. Maybe your reader just likes my perfume. It's calibrated to detect wave resonance, not cologne. It has taste, I say. I'm flattered. Nolan. He leans forward, elbows on the table, voice pitched to a private key. I am not asking you to confess anything. I'm telling you that I notice. I notice patterns. And the pattern is you. The filters hum. The cafe chatters on like a radio tuned to someone else's life. My pulse settles into a rhythm that makes my skin feel both too tight and too loose. I push my cup an inch away, as if caffeine is to blame. Let me guess, I say. This is the part where you promise to protect me from myself, while also threatening to turn me in if I sneeze too loudly. This is the part where I ask if you're all right. The question lands like a dropped wrench in an empty room. Define. All right, I say. He doesn't let me wriggle. Are you losing control? The air shifts. I can feel it. The subtle change pressure makes when a storm is deciding if it wants to happen. No, I say. I am control with legs. His gaze doesn't waver. Your bracelet disagrees. My bracelet is dramatic. So are you. Thank you, I say. It's the only way people listen. He exhales, and for the first time I see fatigue in him, a thin seam around the eyes. I listen. I look away, because I'm not equipped for that kind of honesty before noon in a public place. The matte glass wall blurs the city to smudges of silver and neon. My hands are steady on the table. My pulse is not. And then the world flips its own coin. It starts as a prickle along my forearms, like someone stroking cat fur backward. The filters overhead drone then. Falter. Not off. Not on. Just wrong. Ricardo's eyes cut to a point just past my shoulder, where a tiny indicator, above the bar, glows, then quietly bleeds from white to amber. His jaw tightens. Breathe. I am breathing, I say through a jaw that suddenly thinks it's made of glass. He slides his hand across the table, not touching, close enough that the heat of him maps my skin like an outline. Look at me. I do. It's easier than trying not to. Anchor on me, he says. In and out. You know how to ride a surge. Do I? Yes, I do. God help me, I do. But the surge has its own ideas. The cafe's neutral air wraps me like gauze and tightens. Somewhere, a spoon hits a saucer with a crisp, surprised note. Ricardo's handheld. He swore no recorder. He didn't say no reader. Buzzes to life in his pocket with a soft, traitorous chirp. Two people at the counter glance over, faces performing that careful blankness. People practice in cities. Curious, not curious. Indifferent with a pulse. Ricardo's gaze barely flickers away from mine. Stay with me, he says. And the words hit harder than they should. There's a choice here. Somewhere. I reach for it, and find that my hands are figuratively slippery. The reader in his pocket chirps again, louder this time, a red blink behind the fabric. The filters overhead try to compensate, kicking up a notch. The lights shiver. The surge brushes something inside me that does not feel like Omega at all. Ice replaces my stomach. Ricardo, I know, he says, gentle. I've got you. And then, because the universe respects comedic timing even during biochemical misadventure, the reader gives a sharp, undeniable beep that turns 3 heads and 1 barista. Every gaze in a 10-foot radius lifts, then lands on me like raindrops. Not dangerous yet, but a pattern forming. Ricardo moves. 1 second he is a man at coffee, the next he is a barrier with eyebrows. He rises just enough to block the line of sight from the room, his back to the cafe, his body angled to make me look like a man in a private conversation, not a malfunction. Let's go, he says, voice unhurried. We'll take the service exit. I haven't finished my perfectly tragic coffee. I'll buy you another when we're not about to trend. Hashtag unstable chic, I mutter. He holds out his hand. Not a demand. An offer, palm up, deliberate. I stare at it for half a second, then slide out of the chair without taking it, because touch is a fuse, and we are already too close to the fireworks. We move through the cafe, with the choreography of people who've rehearsed being calm. He steers us past a plant wall, through a staff corridor that smells like lemon and cardboard, down a short flight of stairs to a matte black door stenciled service only. Outside is a narrow strip of alley. The city exhales. I do too. The surge subsides like a tide that had second thoughts. We stand there with the door shut behind us and the chill of shade around our ankles. A beat passes, the kind that could become a confession if you let it. If I didn't know better, he says finally, eyes on my face, voice nothing but soft iron. I'd say you're an alpha. And if I didn't know better, I answer, my laugh too sharp, adrenaline sweet in my mouth, I'd say you're afraid of that word. Silence stretches, not empty, elastic. Then something like a smile, tired and rueful, ghosts across his mouth. I don't fear words, he says. I fear what I do when I stop choosing them. I should run that line through a shredder and go back inside and steal a biscotti out of spite. Instead, I lean against the cool brick and look at him, like I'm trying to read the footnotes in his posture. You covered me, I say. I moved you, he corrects, which is a sentence that shouldn't feel kind and somehow does. There's a difference. Is the difference your job description? Or your conscience? Both, he says. Then, after a moment, quieter also, I don't like watching you burn. Heat ghosts my face that has nothing to do with the surge. I look away, letting the alley's muted light redraw my features into something less readable. Thanks, I say, and it's almost sincere. He nods, accepting the almost as if it were a full payment. Next time, we skip the public. Next time? I echo. Optimist. Planner, he says. And Nolan. If you're losing control, you tell me before the radar does. Why? I ask. So you can put it in your report? So I can hold the door before the room turns on you. The bracelet under my sleeve is calm again, the perfect picture of neutrality. My chest is not. Inside, something paces, not a monster. Something worse, a possibility. Fine, I say. Next time I melt a cafe, I'll send you a calendar invite. Make it recurring, he says. We stand there 1 heartbeat longer than appropriate. I push off the wall, roll my shoulders like the moment was a jacket I can shrug out of. Come on, planner, I say. Buy me another coffee somewhere the furniture won't judge us. He opens the service door with a hand that doesn't shake. There's nowhere in this city that won't judge us, he says, and his mouth curves. But we can be very boring in public if we try. Speak for yourself, I say, stepping back into the hum of filters and air conditioning. I'm electric. The test chamber is a metal cube pretending to be a room. No windows. Light like late afternoon caught inside a tin can. The ventilation system exhales steady and low, feeding air through a mesh of filters that sharpen every scent until even my thoughts feel distilled. Ricardo stands beside the control panel outside the inner ring. posture squared, sleeves rolled to his forearms as if he intends to negotiate with physics by showing it his veins. On the far wall, a grid of indicators idles green. In the center, today's mistake, our adaptive suppression field scaffold, a rib cage of emitter rods arcing into a halo above a circular mat. When it's happy, it glows a soft marine blue. When it's not, it reports the truth. I'll take the mat, I say, because subtext is tedious, and we both know why I'm here. I should go first, he says automatically. You go first everywhere else, I answer, stepping past him. Let me have this one. A small pause, and then, all right. He taps a command. The halo hums awake, a low chord I feel in my teeth. Keep your bracelet active. If the field resonates, we'll record it and taper. If it surges, I know, I say. We've rehearsed the safety lecture. Good. He looks at me like he wants to staple the safety lecture to my shirt anyway. We ramp slowly. Like you, I say. Never reckless, always tragic. The corner of his mouth considers smiling and decides to wait. Begin, at 10%. The halo's light deepens as I step onto the mat. The first wave passes through me like a cool tide. The bracelet hums, matching the rhythm. On the monitor, a slender blue band tracks my output, compliant and boring. Baseline captured, Ricardo says, increasing to 20. The air warms. The halo's tone rises half a step, and my skin fizzles, like static under fabric. I roll my shoulders. The room smells faintly of heated metal and the citrus-clean hood he uses on his hands. The bracelet purrs its neutral mantra. Still good, I say. 30. The indicators track upward. My breathing slows to keep the numbers smooth. The system isn't designed to test obedience. It's designed to find harmony. Unfortunately, harmony requires honesty, and my biology is a compulsive liar. A tremor touches the band on the monitor. A hiccup, a ripple. Ricardo notes it immediately. Did you feel that? You mean the flicker that says I'm interesting or doomed? Both. Delightful. Hold. His hand hovers over the kill, switch like a threat and a promise. I keep my eyes forward, letting the halo's glow edge my vision. I taste copper. Still stable. 40. The temperature ticks up. A slow, deliberate heat, like the room is leaning closer to listen. The ventilation pushes harder. Air moves across my skin in careful strokes, turning scent into language. Ozone climbs, sharp and clean. Beneath it, salt, sweat, the faintest hint of Ricardo without cologne. Cedar with its hands in its pockets. Focus. The band on the monitor wavers again, more pronounced. I speak anyway, because I hate silence when it's thinking about me. You said once you like to understand your tools. I did. You ever worry you'll understand them too well and they'll stop being tools? Yes, he says. Every day, honesty lands like a coin in a glass. Clear, undeniable. The bracelet shivers. 50, he says. If we see a second harmonic, we won't. We do. It slides under the first tone like a second voice in a hymn, soft at first, then more certain. The halo's light thickens with it, a denser blue, and the monitor draws a new line, superimposed over mine, offset, antagonistic, as if my wave is arguing with itself. Ricardo's hand tightens on the panel. Nolan, I know. The word fuzzes around the edges. Reducing to 30. He hits the command. The system ignores him. The halo brightens. The cube seems to shrink. The walls stepping in with a conspirator's grin. Manual override, he says, reaching for the hard switch. Sweat beads at his temple. Not fear, not yet. Calculation working fast. The switch sticks. Of course it does. Safety interlocks have opinions. Ricardo, I say, voice coming from further away than my mouth. We may have invented the part where the room holds grudges. Back off the mat, he orders. But I can't. The field catches at my bones as if I've threaded myself through its ribs. Heat ratchets up. Another degree, then another. I hear the ventilation chew air harder, the filter's breath lowering to a more animal sound. The smell of ozone rises until it bites. On the panel, red climbs like a verdict. Inside my chest, something ancient paces. Not a monster. A threshold. Nolan, he says, urgent now. Look at me. I do. Instantly. Because I'm wired that way now. His voice is the rope I can still hold. Anchor, he says. He's close enough that the halo paints his profile in blue. His eyes are darker for it. Breathe. In on 4. I try. The air tastes wrong. Metallic, charged. The monitor bands shear apart. Discord yawning between them. The system amplifies what it detects, and what it detects is that I'm not one thing. Ricardo wrenches the emergency casing off the hard switch. Sparks spit. He throws it. Nothing. The field refuses to stand down. Nolan, he says. And there's something naked in it now. Not command. Not protocol. His instinct laughs at both of us and steps through the door. It is not rage. It's not even panic. It's clarity with claws. My back straightens. The heat becomes an outline around me instead of an assault. The bracelet, precious little traitor, stops pretending neutrality and flashes a steady, unblinking red. The second harmonic surges and swallows the first. On the monitor, my wave inverts, omega into something its labels don't accommodate. The halo's tone deepens into a note the room wasn't built to hold. The band of blue becomes a burning rim. Ricardo swears once under his breath. His hand goes for me, then stops a fraction short, because even now he won't reach into a field he doesn't understand. Talk to me. I can't. I start, and it's true. My throat is thick with heat. Then listen, he says. Stay with me. Don't let the system tell you what you are. A spasm of humor finds me, frantic and bright. That's your job, I say, and my voice is lower, richer, a register I've never used on purpose. It vibrates the metal at my feet. The halo tightens around the mat like a noose, pretending to be a necklace. The room's sounds compress, the fans growl, the tremble of the rods, the quick click of Ricardo's breath. Sweat pulls a cool track down my spine. My hands curl at my sides, not fists, anchors seeking purchase. Look at me, he says again. He steps to the very edge of the mat, heat rolling off him like weather. Nolan. His name for me catches something. The field, idiot savant that it is, interprets the recognition as a cue. It pitches higher, hunting resonance with the new shape of me. I don't think. Thinking is for later. I lean into the wave, the way you lean into a wind that wants to knock you down. My body remembers the surge from the lab, but this time I don't recoil. I spread the feeling out through my chest like I'm opening a door. The second harmonic hits, hard, expecting me to break. I answer it. The pulse I return is not submission, it's a counter melody, equal and opposite. It's the shape of no delivered in the grammar of yes but on my terms. For an instant, the room brightens. The ring of emitters flares, and the mat vibrates under my boots. On the monitor, the two bands curl toward each other, teeth bared, and then touch. The discord collapses into a single line, wide and luminous. The halo's tone settles by degrees, from siren to organ chord to a steady, bearable hum. Ricardo doesn't move. He's watching like I've reached into a storm and braided it. Sweat is a clean shine along his temple now. His chest rises and falls a fraction too fast. The emergency switch hangs from its wire like a dissected nerve. The red in my bracelet dims. The heat loosens its grip. My knees feel suddenly available for negotiation. I breathe and find my throat again. Field, I say to the air, voice back in my mouth. Stand down. For a terrible second, the system considers ignoring me out of pure habit. Then it sighs, and the halo's light falls to that oceanic blue. Temperature drops. The ventilation's animal growl becomes a civilized whisper. I step off the mat. The room expands back to its previous size. My hands shake like I've been holding more weight than they're licensed for. Ricardo doesn't touch me, but he's within touch's idea of distance. Report, he says softly, as if speaking too loud might break something we just fixed. I swallow, and the air tastes clean again. Adaptive resonance achieved at, I don't know, somewhere between too much and almost dead. He gives the kind of laugh that breaks on one edge. Clinical, terrible, I correct. We stand there in the quiet buzz, our breath sinking because we're weak to symmetry. A drop of sweat runs down the back of my neck. I shiver and hate that he notices it and loves that he does. How did you do that? He asks finally, not a demand, an honest reach. I look at the halo, now innocent as a lampshade, at the monitor's calm lie, at my bracelet cooling on my wrist. My mouth answers before my brain clears it. I stopped arguing with it, I say. And then I argued louder. His eyes are very dark now, not with heat, but with the absence after it. He studies my face like he's trying to memorize the exact map of who stood on that mat. What are you? He asks. Not like an accusation, like a prayer that expects no answer. I meet his gaze, and something easy and reckless comes through me. The same thing that rode the wave and refused to drown. Your exception to the rules, I say. The room holds that. A beat, too. The ventilation system decides not to applaud. Shock is a precise shape on his face, fine lines going softer, certainty making space for awe. Fear threads it, because fear is honest. Relief loosens his shoulders half an inch. If I moved forward, I could press my forehead to his and feel all of it. I don't. Not yet. He exhales. Everything changes now. Didn't it already? My smile is thin and true. The moment you bought me coffee. Heat like laughter moves up his throat but doesn't escape. He glances at the halo, at the switch, at the hairline crack that's appeared in one of the emitter housings, a physical signature of our argument with physics. You could have burned, he says. So could you, I answer. You stood too close. I don't like watching you burn, he says, echoing the alley without meaning to. I noticed, I say, and my chest is a hive of bees, but the good kind, the kind that know where home is. He clears his throat, a retreat to professionalism that fools neither of us. We need to log this. We need to lie creatively, I counter. Both, he amends. We look at the halo, then at each other, then away, as if the room might report on us if we give it too much material. The bracelet on my wrist whispers its neutral lullaby again, smug little mask. I press a thumb to it until it warms, a quiet warning. I know what you are, even when you pretend you don't. Again? He asks, and I hear what he's really asking. Can you do it again without breaking? Yes, I say, and hear what I'm really saying, not alone. He nods once. Decisive. The switch gets reseated, the panel resets like a face composed for a photograph. He moves back to his station. I step onto the mat, calmly now, like choosing it is a power in itself. Ready? He says, ready, I answer. But if I set the room on fire, you're buying me another shirt. I'll buy you a lab, he says. The halo hums, obedient as a tamed storm. And for the first time I believe that we might actually be the people who get to tell it when to rain. The memo lands like a blade without flourish. Subject, gray. Nolan, unstable omega. Action, detain. Transfer to holding. Authorization, directorate. Priority, immediate. Ricardo doesn't move for a full 10 seconds. The office of security smells like printer heat and old decisions. The wall of monitors plays their quiet cinema, city maps, entry logs. The endless heartbeat of systems behaving like they were told to. He reads the lines again, in case words choose to mean something else on the second pass. They don't. His reflection hovers in the glass, jaw set, eyes tired, tie crooked by a degree no one but him would notice. The cursor blinks at the bottom of the order like a metronome counting out the pace at which his life narrows. He could route this to a team. Procedure says he should. He routes it to himself. Delgado, says a voice from the doorway. His deputy, Myra, sharp, professional, loyal to a fault. You want cover? He doesn't turn around. No. You sure? Her tone is careful. Rumor is, engineering had a day in test 4. I was there, he says. It comes out too even. Stand down, Myra. A pause. Respect. A retreating click of boots. The cursor keeps blinking. He presses his thumb to the scanner, and the system accepts his promise to be what it says he is. Night folds the building into a quieter kind of machine. The executive floors go museum still, the labs bank their lights to low amber. Elevators travel slower, like they're thinking, I'm in the lab. Where else? The world outside has edges. This room has numbers. The cracked emitter housing from the experiment sits on my bench like a crime scene trophy. I've cleaned the scorch mark off the mat. I've left the halo dark. I've made coffee and let it go cold on purpose to prove I can still ruin something harmless. I know about the memo before he does. The system isn't as opaque to me as it wants to be. I found the flag when the directorate set it. I could have run. I didn't. Instead, I left a neat series of breadcrumbs. Subtle edits to the access log, a maintenance request that routes any security entry badge through this lab after hours. A polite invitation to fate. If Delgado, then come find me. Yes, I amuse myself. The door opens at 23:14 on the dot. He always arrives on the exhale of the minute, never the inhale. Precision has tells. Good evening, I say without turning. Here to check the ventilation again. Or is this the part where you produce handcuffs and an apology? Don't joke, he says, which is how I know it's bad enough to need humor like oxygen. I pivot on the stool. He's in full uniform. No rolled sleeves. Tie straight. Jaw locked. Eyes, wreckage behind glass. He holds the memo in his hand like a faith he wishes he didn't have to carry. Nolan, he says. There's an order. Detain. Transfer. Hold, I recite. Someone practice their synonyms. He closes the door and engages the manual lock no one knows is there unless they've broken this building twice for sport. He doesn't read me my rights. He doesn't step closer. He exists, taut and deliberate, 2 meters away. You should have run, he says. I considered it, I admit. But then who would keep your conscience company? His mouth almost moves, then doesn't. This isn't a game. No, I say. But they're playing one with me. Silence finds us, heavy and bright. The lab hums its nocturne, fridges, soft fans, the micro sigh of 1,000 sleeping circuits. I can smell his soap, that unadorned cedar, threaded now with something salt and human. Give me your bracelet, he says, voice flat from the weight of protocol. I need a fresh sink for custody. You mean you need the performance of consent for the file, I say, and peel the ring free. My wrist feels naked, light, wrong. I hold the band between 2 fingers. Watch it seam catch the low light. Think of the way it flashed red like a heartbeat with something to prove. He doesn't take it. He looks at my bare wrist like a cliff looks at the sea. This is the part, I say softly, where you tell me you have no choice. He swallows. The tendon in his throat flexes. I don't. The anger that rises in me is clean. Not heat, not noise. Clarity with a laugh. So that's how your radar works, Ricardo? I ask, my voice gone steady and sharp. It finds the people you're afraid to lose? He flinches, like I pressed a thumb to a bruise. His composure fractures. The memo crumples in his fist. I can't. He stops. Starts again. I can't do otherwise. Then choose, I say. I stand, and the room telescopes until there's just the line between us. Me, or the system. There it is. Naked and indecent on the metal table. The thing we've been refusing to name since the cafe. He breathes. And the breath sounds like a man putting down a weapon he trained his whole life to carry. He steps forward. Not enough to touch. Enough to make choosing a physical act. You think it's that simple? He says, and there's a crack in his voice. That it's a clean cut? That if I cut it, it won't bleed all over you? I'm already bleeding, I say. You're just the one polite enough to look. We stare at each other like mirrors that want to argue. The bracelet hangs warm in my hand. The halo on the ceiling is a dark crown. Say it, he says. What? What you are. I could lie. I could shrug. I could weaponize irony until the room drowns. Instead, I give him the only answer that's ever felt like mine. I'm your exception to the rules. His eyes close for a heartbeat. as if the words hit a switch he's kept hidden under bone. When they open, the decision is in them, a weather change, a tide turning. "Give me the bracelet," he says again, but different. I hand it over. He sets it on the bench. He doesn't scan it. He doesn't turn it on. He pulls up the security console with the memo, opens the files he isn't supposed to touch without. A witness, exposes the root, the place where truths are stored so they can be sold as facts. "You know I'll lose my badge," he says. "You can wear mine," I say. "It's very fashionable." Goes with guilt. He huffs a broken sound that wants to be a laugh when it grows up. Then his fingers move. He navigates with the grace of someone who's never been told no by a machine, and doesn't plan to start now. He finds my record, the spikes, the flags, the quiet compilation of being noticed by the wrong people. "Last chance," he says, not to me, to himself. I step where I can see the screen. "Make it count." He does. He selects the log branch that began the day the directorate got curious, and he cuts it. The system protests. He overrides. It asks for a reason. He types one. Data integrity correction. It asks for confirmation. He offers his thumb and a slice of his future. The bar crawls across the screen like a nervous animal. The lab's lights flicker as if the building wants to argue and can only throw a tantrum. The progress hits 100. The file stutters, then collapses like a tent whose poles were pulled in the right order. On the backup server, he reaches deeper, into a place the directorate assumes no one knows. He deletes there too, patient and thorough, until the records that make me a target become artifacts that never were. When it's done, he kills the audit trail that would tell on him and writes a new one that says a scheduled purge ran exactly when no one was watching. He's good. It scares me a little. How good. We stand with the screens swimming blue. The bracelet on the bench lies quiet, all innocence and graphite. "Now what?" I ask, when my voice remembers that it belongs to me. "Now we leave," he says. The word hangs. We, a promise, a sentence, a door. Together? I say, because sarcasm is a habit and hope is a risk. Together, he says, and it doesn't shake. He shrugs off his jacket, revealing the line of a concealed harness. He pulls the badge from his collar and drops it in the drawer. It looks like a molted skin. He opens the emergency cabinet no one opens unless they mean it, and removes a plain black duffel. In it, a burner phone, a set of ID cards that are technically illegal, a small toolkit, a passport that doesn't use his name and fits his face anyway. "You had a plan," I say, surprised and not. "I had a contingency," he corrects, because he's still himself. "For someone else. It looks better on us. We don't pack much." I slide a drive the size of a thumb into my pocket. Everything good I ever built, and everything dangerous I won't leave behind. He takes the duffel. I take the bracelet. I don't put it on. We move through the sleeping building like ghosts that paid rent. He knows every camera angle. I know every sensor blind. Between us, we make a map the architects would be annoyed to learn exists. The elevator hums down with polite discretion. The lobby yawns empty, half-lit, beautiful like a church when no one is singing. At the service exit, he pauses with his hand on the bar. "You can still change your mind," he says without looking at me. "So can you," I answer. "But you won't." He opens the door. Night air spills in, cool, unscented, with that wide city taste of possibility. The alley is a spine of shadow between two ribs of light. Somewhere far away, a siren tests its own voice and decides it doesn't need us. We step out. The door clicks shut behind us. For the first time since my body learned how to lie, my lungs fill all the way. "Congratulations," I say, because I don't know how to stand in freedom without leaning on a joke. "We're criminals. We're inconvenient," he says. "There's a difference. We walk, not fast. Fast looks like guilt. Side by side, shoulder to almost shoulder, our strides find a rhythm they didn't have to practice." I look at him, at the set of his mouth, the way relief sits uneasy on his bones, the new space in him where obedience used to live. "You can call me Nolan," I say, and it shouldn't feel like an intimacy and does. He glances down at me, something like light in his eyes despite the dark. "Nolan," he says. "You can call me whatever gets us to the car." I laugh. Too bright, too alive. The sound bounces off brick and doesn't come back empty. I hook a thumb toward the street. Left at the corner. I know a place that won't ask questions. The kind of place you take all your bad ideas? He asks. The kind of place where bad ideas grow up into plans, I say. He nods once. Good. Because I just burned mine. We turn left. The city opens like a circuit we're finally qualified to touch. Somewhere inside my chest, a wave rises. Not the kind that knocks me over, the kind that lifts. For the first time, I don't fight it. Free, I think. And the word fits like skin. The hangar looks like a ship's ribcage washed ashore and left to bleach under the moon. Corrugated metal bones, a yawning door that never quite closes, concrete floor softened by dust and the slow patience of weeds. The night is a cool hand on the back of my neck. Beyond the threshold, the city is a smear of silver, far enough that its sirens sound like dreams other people are having. Inside, we've made an ecosystem out of salvage. A folding table groans under a mess of tools and cables. A generator coughs at intervals like a smoker trying to quit. I've cannibalized 2 old suppressor towers and a weather station to build something that looks like a chandelier designed by an enemy, a crown of emitters hung from the rafters, their glass throats pointed down at a rough circle I've chalked onto the floor. Ricardo moves through the dim with that same precise awareness he had in the lab, except now it's wearing different skin. Less duty, more choice. He sets the duffel on a crate. Spreads out the ID cards that aren't his on a faded tarp. Straightens. The corners of our temporary life, like a man unpacking a word he's never said aloud, together. You wired the generator to a kill switch? He asks. 3. I say, tightening a bracket with my teeth in a bolt. 1 for me, 1 for you, and 1 for the universe, in case it wants mercy. Good, he says, and checks them anyway. Moonlight spills through the broken skylight in a rectangle that shifts as clouds drift. Dust spins in it like a private galaxy. The air smells like rust, cold concrete, old oil, and night. I clip a cable, strip it, feed copper into a terminal until it holds. My hands are steady. My chest is not. Somewhere under my sternum, a small drum has been beating since we walked out of the building. Relief wears strange clothes when you aren't used to hosting it. You should sleep, he says, as if the concept hasn't been chasing me and missing all night. After, I say. If the system knows our names, it can keep guessing. If it knows our signatures, we're just a little fiction away from a knock on the door. Then let me help. You are helping, I say, because his presence makes the air line up right. Hand me the 8mm and the dignity I left in the city. He passes me the wrench with a look that counts as a smile in the language he's learning to speak. You left your dignity in a coffee shop. Right, I say, and bite a laugh off the end of the word. Along with my innocence and a biscotti, we settle into the rhythm we built against our will. He manages perimeter, fixes lines, reads, the way the hangar breathes. I negotiate with the monstrous grace of wires and code. The crown above us comes alive in degrees, first the faintest filament glow, then a deeper pulse, like bioluminescence, then the low organ-deep thrum of resonance tests running in loops. At some point, he returns from the shadows with 2 bottles of water and a half-crushed protein bar he pretends he didn't find under the passenger seat weeks ago. I drink like water is an absolution. The bar tastes like oatmeal apologizing for existing. It's enough. Talk to me, he says quietly, when the crown is half awake, and the generator has settled into its new religion. His voice doesn't echo in here. It folds around us instead. About the machine or the existential crisis? Yes. I sit on the crate opposite him. The chalk circle between us looks like a ritual, so I make it one. I put the wrench aside, and with it the automatic deflection of humor that's kept me alive this long. You asked if I was losing control, I say. You weren't wrong. The wave, my wave, it doesn't fit the category they gave me. It flips when it feels like it. Like a coin in a mood. Triggers, he asks, all clinical, but his eyes stay soft. Fear, I say. Anger. The smell of metal before rain. You. His mouth answers before the rest of him gets permission. A small intake of breath that says he knew and didn't. both at once, me. Your reader isn't broken, I say, and make my hands behave. It's not the city or the lab or the coffee. It's the way my system recognizes yours and decides we're not strangers. Resonance, he says. Resonance, I echo, and the word feels like a switch. We sit with it, the truth more alive in the room than electricity. Outside, a train whispers to itself in the distance. The moon crawls a little higher and throws a line of light across the chalk circle, like a new line in an old map. He breaks first. I got the order, he says. It felt like swallowing a nail. I've followed worse. I've written worse. But that one, he shakes his head. It made every sense the system knows how to make. And none that I do. I know, I say. I saw it. He doesn't ask how. He knows me well enough now to add, of course, to the list of things he doesn't say out loud. I told myself I'd never break a rule for attraction, he says, and the word looks embarrassed on him, like a shirt he borrowed and forgot to iron. Or fear. Or being seen. I thought that was how you kept yourself honest, but that was just another rule that let me avoid choosing. And you chose, I say. I chose you, he answers, as if the air asked him and he wants it recorded. And I'm terrified of how easy it was the second I stopped lying. Something under my rib cage unclenches. Something else slips its hand into the space it leaves. I lean forward, elbows on my knees, and the honesty scraped raw in me asks for company. I've spent so long proving I wasn't dangerous, I say, that I forgot the difference between harm and power. I'm tired of apologizing for how I'm wired. Good, he says, and I hear the relief in it. I'm tired of apologizing for how I'm trained. We look at each other through a quiet that doesn't need to win. His eyes are darker in this light. The scar near his hairline looks softer. The generator stutters, then smooths. In the rafters, a bird makes a small evening sound like it slept through its alarm and is embarrassed. Say it, he murmurs, and I know which line he wants, because it's been walking circles in his head since the cafe. I give it to him because I want it too. If I didn't know better, I say, soft as a cut, I'd say you're afraid of that word. He huffs a laugh that warms the metal between us. Not anymore. We stand at the same time without planning to. He steps to the edge of the chalk circle. I step to the other. The crown of emitters waits above us like a patient storm. What happens if this breaks? He asks. We hide again, and I rebuild out of a toaster in spite, I say. What happens if it works? He looks at the door, and not at the door. Then we're not in the book anymore. That's the point, I say, and reach for the main switch. Before I touch it, he says my name like it's a test and a prayer. Nolan. I glance up. Ricardo. He wets his lower lip, a fraction, eyes on mine. My radar always maxed out near you, he says, evenly. Like a man signing a confession he wrote himself, but apparently not because of pheromones. The line lands in the center of my chest, spreads like warmth. Good, I say, because if it were pheromones, this would be much easier to ruin. He almost smiles. Then he nods at the switch. I throw it. The hanger inhales. Light spills down from the crown in concentric ripples. White that edges blue, blue that edges deeper, until we're standing inside a cathedral that physics built for fun. The emitters sing an ascending scale and hold on the note that makes my teeth remember childhood. The generator stops coughing and begins to chant. The chalk circle becomes a map of shadow and glow. My bracelet lies on the crate, face up, pretending to be asleep even. It can't help the tiny red wink that answers the field like a hello. Step in, I say. He does. Because of course he does. Because he is the kind of person who looks at danger and chooses the part where he stands with the person inside it. I take the opposite edge, and for a beat we're 2 points in a circuit that was always waiting to close. On my mark, I tell him. 1, 2, 3, he finishes, and we both breathe into the field. Not an instruction, but an invitation. The wave hits and expects panic. It gets recognition instead. The crown hums low, drawing our signatures out of us with a tug that is more curiosity than theft. I feel mine rise. Old reflex says fight. New knowledge says shape. I guide it, same as in the cube. But easier now. like moving in water instead of against it. Ricardo's presence is gravity at my shoulder. Not touching. Close enough to draft. His wave is steadier, colder at the edge, warm at the core, the way a blade is hottest where the hand holds it. When it leans into mine, the interference pattern blooms, messy first, then patient, then precise as a lace made of mathematics. Now, I say, and flip the sequence that takes the field from reading to writing. The emitter's song turns inside out. The chalk dust skitters like 1,000 tiny animals startled in the same direction. The air thrums. On the crate, the bracelet gives up its act and flashes a red that isn't mine anymore. Just the machine reading the last echo of who I was in the system. I aim the field at that memory the way you aim warmth at frost. The crown paints it, blurs it, breaks it into noise, then polishes the noise into a new silence. Come on, I whisper. Come on. The generator growls. The lights thicken. The crown's tone finds the exact frequency that makes the hair on my arm stand up like grass in a wind. For a second too long, nothing happens. Then everything does. The data drive in my pocket vibrates with the ghost of its connection to the old network. It winks out and returns. The little illegal receiver I jerry-rigged to eavesdrop on the registry pings, query, signal. Then not found. Ricardo's breath breaks on the exhale. He's watching the receiver, not me. It pings again. Not found. Not found. One more time, as if the system thinks insistence is magic, not. And then it stops asking. I kill the field. Silence drops with a delicate thud. The crown hums its way back to sleeping. The moonlight moves another inch on the concrete. Dust floats like the aftermath of applause. Looks at me. I look at him. For a second, neither of us moves, as if motion might make it untrue. Then he laughs, a small, surprised thing like someone bumping the wind chime inside his chest. It catches me by the ribs and shakes something loose. It worked, he says, and it's almost disbelief. It worked, I say, and it's relief with teeth. We step out of the circle. I pick up the bracelet. It feels lighter, like it knows it's been demoted to jewelry. He takes it from me, turns it over once, then sets it down like an old ID card you keep for the story, not the access. Outside, a breeze finds the gap in the door and walks the hangar slowly, touching the crown, the benches, the crate, us. We stand in it and let it adjust to our new shape. Do you think they'll find us now? I ask, because someone has to. He considers it like a problem with more than one good answer. I don't know, he says, but if they try, I'll break the radar again. Excellent, I say, and my mouth is already smiling before I know it. Then I'm your new test subject. He huffs a quiet laugh, steps closer, not touching, close enough that the space between us takes a breath on our behalf. The moon paints a sharp edge on his cheek. He smells like old soap and present tense. We should sleep, he says. We should, I say, and don't move. The generator ticks as it cools. Ricardo, Nolan. Thank you, I say. And the words feel like jumping off something and landing on something softer than fear. For choosing me, he shifts, as if he wants to step away from the gravity of gratitude and doesn't. I didn't, he says. I stopped not choosing you. Pedantic, I say, and grin. Attractive. Dangerous, he counters, but his mouth is not on speaking terms with the word. We do the practical things because we're still us. He throws the main breaker for the crown. I stow the tools like they'll judge me later. He checks the locks. I make a bed out of common sense and coats. When it's dark enough to feel earned, we lie down parallel on the concrete. Softened by fabric and fatigue, our shoulders an honest distance apart. Tomorrow? I ask the ceiling. We find food that isn't oatmeal in witness protection, he says. And a place with a door that thinks it's more door than metaphor. And after that? He is quiet a long time. When he answers, it's with the voice he used in the alley. Soft iron. After that, we learn how to be people you can't catalog. Ambitious, I murmur, smiling into the dark. Planner, he replies. And in the long, comfortable silence that follows, the night leans on the hangar and decides not to break it. Somewhere between the last thought and sleep, the memory of the field, Light drifts across my mind, blue becoming white, becoming nothing. I let it go. For once, nothing inside me tries to yank it back. Freedom doesn't announce itself. It sits down next to you and hands you water. I drink. Wave Zero lives in a rented cube of sunlight and noise. One of those. Small tech parks the city, keeps trying to gentrify into relevance. The walls are soft gray. The air smells like coffee, warm solder, and ambition on a budget. A jungle of plants lines the windowsill. Ricardo insists it's for air quality. I think he likes the idea of something else growing here besides code. Our sign hangs crooked by the door. Radar never lies, but with brains you can fool the system. Inside, it's chaos disguised as productivity, a whiteboard dense with equations. A couch that doubles as a crash zone. A 3D printer that hums like a bee with low self-esteem. I sit cross-legged on the floor, elbows deep in a half-assembled stabilizer, core that might someday become version 2 of the suppression system. Or a lamp. The odds are even. Ricardo leans over a small mountain of receipts, trying to wrestle an expense report into submission. His sleeves are rolled as always. His tie, long retired, lives a quiet afterlife in a drawer. The badge that once held his name now props open a window. Do we actually need another printer? He asks, without looking up. No, I say. But I needed to prove a point. That point being that printers are evil. He exhales through his nose, the way he does when he's trying not to smile. You can't keep breaking hardware to make philosophical statements. I can if it's in the budget. It's not. Then it's performance art. He looks up finally, one brow raised. You've been talking to the interns again. We don't have interns. Exactly. The smell of burnt flux wafts from my corner. He tilts his head. Is something supposed to be smoking? Yes. Should it be? No. He gets up anyway, crossing the room in that measured, patient way that makes me feel like a controlled burn he's decided to supervise rather than extinguish. He crouches beside me, watching me poke the circuit board with a soldering iron. You're going to melt that connector, he says. I'm already melting, I reply. Just in a more existential sense. He doesn't argue. He takes the iron from my hand with the careful exasperation of a man who's done this too many times and not enough. His fingers brush mine. Barely, an accident the room pretends not to notice. For a moment, I forget which part of me is supposed to conduct electricity. You're terrible at letting people help, he says. I had to be, I tell him. Now I'm adjusting. He glances at me sideways, faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Adjustment noted. The printer on the opposite table makes a sound of mechanical despair and spits out a single page, black smudge, 2 crooked lines, 1 perfect corner. I call it art. He calls it broken. We agree to disagree. Outside the window, the city glows like circuitry, veins of gold running between buildings. We built this place at the edge of all that noise, where the signals fade and the air feels like possibility. Ricardo returns to his chair, reviewing the day's numbers on an old tablet. I keep soldering, pretending not to watch him think. The rhythm of it, the quiet, the shared oxygen, has become its own language. He breaks the silence first. I was wrong, you know, he says. About the radar. You? Wrong? I feign shock. That's a first. He ignores me with dignity. It never lied about you. It was just measuring the wrong thing. Intensity instead of danger? I ask. Connection instead of threat. The words hang there, easy and heavy at the same time. I let them settle before replying. Then maybe it wasn't broken after all. No, he says, and looks up. It just didn't know the protocol for falling in love. That makes me laugh. The quiet, unguarded kind that still feels like a new muscle. You're getting better at jokes, I tell him. I'm learning from the best, he says, and gestures at the smoking circuit. Which is concerning. We work until the generator in the corner clicks off and the room slides into a gentler hum. The night outside tilts blue. The plants along the sill fold their leaves like tired hands. I stand, stretch, and cross the room to flick off the desk lamp. Ricardo looks up from the tablet as the shadows stretch between us. End of day? He asks. End of everything that used to matter, I say. Beginning of whatever this is. He sets the tablet down and meets me halfway, stopping just close enough for our shoulders to share warmth without promise. The moment balances, quiet, calm, full. Tomorrow, he says, we'll be normal. I grin. That sounds terrifying. Good, he replies softly. Then we're still us. His hand brushes mine, a small, deliberate motion. No field, no signal, no alarms. Just skin and trust, ordinary and miraculous. Live, he says. Not hide, I answer. We stand like that for a breath, maybe two, while the sign on the door catches the light from the hallway. Radar never lies, but with brains, you can fool the system. The generator purrs again. The coffee machine starts a slow, sleepy drip, and the world, for once, feels exactly calibrated.